Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Zhang and I'm the Pacific Northwest Key Club District Editor, and today we're going to be going over club officer training for the editor position. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about myself. And so, like I said, my name is Jenny and I'm the district editor. I'm from Division 32, Go Dragons, and I'm an incoming senior at Lindbergh High School. And before I was the district editor, I was my home club's bulletin editor. So I understand the roles of an editor at the club level. So before we get started, let's address our agenda. So first I want to talk about what a bulletin editor is and the general duties of an editor. Then we're going to talk about taking photos and updating your club, which are two responsibilities that you have. Then I'll talk about making newsletters, which you should be creating every month or bi-monthly. And then I'll cover brand guide and graphic standards information, and lastly address other duties that you have as an editor. Alright, so let's get started. First, what is a bulletin editor? A bulletin editor is a combination of three different positions. You are a public relations officer, which means you're responsible for connecting with people outside of your club. If you want to promote your club at the local newspaper, you're the one in charge of making that connection. If you want to talk about your club during assemblies or just through the intercom, you're responsible for promoting your club through those mediums as well. You're also the historian, which means you take photos and write articles documenting what's been happening around your club. And you're an editor, which means you compile all of that information into publications like newsletters or flyers that kind of update your club on what's going on and update people outside of your club so they can learn more about what your club has been doing. So what are some of the general duties of an editor? So in addition to all of the club officer duties like attending meetings like officer meetings and general meetings, and also volunteer events and DCMs, you also have to take photos at all of these meetings and events. You create posters and promotional material, especially at the beginning of the year, to get people into your club. And you are responsible for creating updates, so updating your club on what's happened in the past and recapping all the past volunteer events, and also updating them on upcoming future volunteer events, DCMs, etc. You also create newsletters that compile all this information so your club can learn more about what's been happening. And you also update your Kiwanis advisors or your sponsoring Kiwanis club on what your club's been up to. So the first duty that you have as an editor is to take photos. And so I'm going to give you a few tips on taking photos of your club. So my first tip is to use what you have. You don't have to go out and buy a fancy $600 DSLR camera. You can just use your phone or use any camera that you have at home. You should always bring your camera with you, so to volunteer events, meetings, etc., have it with you so you can capture those moments. When you're volunteering, you should not sacrifice volunteering. So when you're volunteering, make sure that you are volunteering with your club and you're taking a break once in a while. You don't want to totally just abandon your club and stand in the corner and take pictures of them the entire time, because that's not what Key Club is about. Key Club is about service, so make sure that you are still serving. You should always ask for permission when you're taking photos, so don't just take people's pictures and upload them on the internet. Make sure you're aware of all your members' preferences when it comes to their photos. You should always take a group photo, so after each DCM or volunteer event, get someone else to take a photo of everyone who came to the event, so including yourself. So then it's good to see everyone who attended, and it's also a good way to wrap up an entire event. You should always upload promptly as well. So when you have an event, make sure you're uploading your pictures maybe the day or two after. You don't want to upload it maybe a week or a month later, because people will start to forget. So you want to make sure people don't forget, and making sure that you are uploading them as soon as you possibly can. So some tips that I have for taking photos include taking action shots. So in this photo, for example, she's not very happy and she's not doing anything. But in this next photo, she's volunteering and she's very happy, and it's just an overall more enthusiastic and exciting photo. You should also get their faces. A lot of the times people like being recognized in your newsletters and in your Facebook posts and your emails. So for example, in this photo you can't really see their faces, but in this next photo you can see how happy they are after a long day of work eating pizza. So definitely get people's faces because they love to be recognized. Lastly, make sure that you're inclusive. Inclusiveness is one of the core values of Key Club International. So make sure that you are not just taking photos of your friend group and your clique, but making sure that you are getting photos of everyone who attended an event so they can feel included and you can just have pictures of them being exciting and doing things. So the next responsibility that you have as an editor is to update your club. And so I have three main ways for you to update your club. And the first way is through a school bulletin. And so that school bulletin is just a bulletin board or a casing that you see in your hallway. So when you walk by them at school, you see like something on the walls. And so make sure that your Key Club has one. Ask the ASB advisor or the main office, just ask how you can get your hands on one if you don't have one. And when you're putting that together, make sure you include a title. So making sure that you have your high school Key Clubs, like a title like that says Key Club at the top of the casing. Include fun and colorful photos. So for the photos that you've been taking at events and your meetings, make sure you print them out either at Kinko's or if you have a color printer. I know at Kinko's it's about $1 for a full colored copy photo. So definitely get your hands on some of those and put them up in your casing to draw some life and have more activity going on in there. You should also have a folder on your casing or on your bulletin board with forms and paperwork. So for example, when decon season comes around and you want to update your club with paperwork and give them all the resources that they need to sign up, you have a form or a folder on your casing, so then you can put forms inside it and kind of change it throughout the year so people can just walk by and grab a form if they don't have one. And it's great because people don't have to come through meetings necessarily to pick them up, and it's just an efficient and effective way to get paperwork out to your members. You should also showcase some spirit wear. If you have some divisional spirit wear or club spirit wear, have it in there, and also add any personal touches, maybe a stuffed animal of your mascot or just lots of other kinds of pictures or cutouts or anything like that. Make sure that you are also updating this board throughout the year, so changing photos once in a while. The next way you can update your club is through social media. And so social media is Facebook, Twitter, your website, etc. And making sure that you are consistent on that is very, very important. So make sure that you are giving frequent, regular updates, but don't spam them. So making sure that you're not updating them every 2 seconds of every hour. Just post maybe at least once a week, just making sure that people are still updated on upcoming events like DCMs, potlucks, elections, etc. Making sure that you're updating them in advance far enough so they can get prepared for things like that. You should also update them about agendas. So during your club meetings, you should have like an agenda or a list of things you're going to address during that meeting. So work with your secretary and kind of put together a little agenda that you can upload online so people can see what happened in your meeting if they did not attend. You should also update them about upcoming volunteer events. So on Facebook, make an event page that is for that volunteer event, just so you can gauge how many people are going to be attending, and making sure that you're posting about it frequently online, emailing about it, etc. You should also post photos about past events and include like a little recap or a blurb on what happened. And so these photos should be uploaded into an album on your Facebook group or sent out through emails or uploaded to a Google Drive where people can see them and just kind of look through them. And lastly, on social media, make sure that you are personable but also professional. You don't want to talk in slang or talk very inappropriately, but you also want to seem presentable and friendly as well. And Facebook is one of the most important and most influential social media sites. So I definitely recommend making a Facebook group for your club if you haven't already. And definitely through this, you can make your event pages and your photo albums, and also invite and add your Kiwanians to your Facebook page so they can be updated through that as well. My last way to update your club is through email. And email is often less checked by teenagers, but you should always still be using it just in case people do use it, and if they don't have Facebook or Twitter or anything, they can still be updated. And so use email along with social media. So as you're sending out Facebook updates, also send out email updates. And you should be emailing your Kiwanians as well. Kiwanians oftentimes don't check Facebook as often as they do check their email. So make sure that you're sending out your emails to them especially. You would use email to contact people in charge of volunteer events, so you can make that connection, advertise, and get information from them so you can update your club about it. You should also use email for advertising your club. So like I said, if you want to contact your local newspaper, contact your ASB president, or anyone in your school that you need, your Key Club needs to make contact with, you would use email to do it. You should also be very professional on email and just be concise and brief, but also have a tone of professionalism to that. So email etiquette is important to making your club sound and look good through email, and make sure that you're professional, you're using standard English, grammar, and spelling. So making sure that you're not using slang or chat speak or anything like that. Make sure you're concise and informative, so brief, but also get to the point, and making sure that you hit all the points that you need to talk about. And also remember to close your emails with the contact info that you have. So for example, for closing my emails, I use my name, my position, my organization, and close with my contact information like my phone number and my email. Alright, so now we're going to talk about making newsletters. And so newsletters are publications that you should be publishing every month or bi-monthly, which is every 2 months. And so basically this is just something that you should include all of your club updates in, so then people can just read them and learn about it. Because oftentimes during meetings or your social media posts, people aren't engaged with your updates because they might find them boring. But once you put them in a newsletter that they can flip through online and kind of read and see a bunch of pictures and colors and exciting things in, they're most likely to be more engaged in what they're reading and just learn more about your club. So making newsletters is a really great way to engage and make your members more active within your club. So who doesn't want active members? Definitely make a newsletter. And so when you're making your newsletter, make sure that you're publishing it either every month or every 2 months, and making sure that they're out by the 10th of that month. So if you're making, for example, your July newsletter, make sure you have it out by July 10th, and it'll cover everything that happened in June, and it'll cover all the upcoming events that will happen in the month of July, after July 10th. So just have it out by the 10th of each month or every 2 months, however you want, and upload it and share it. So basically, to start with making your newsletter, you have to find a program that you like to use so you can start putting everything together. So you can use either Word or Publisher or InDesign or Photoshop. Basically, any software you can put text in and add pictures to, that should be totally fine, and it should be something you're familiar with, so it's not too difficult to use. Just make sure that you can add text and photos, and everything should be solid. Alright, and so the next few slides I'm just going to give a little tutorial on how to create and publish your newsletter. And if you have any other questions about that, or if you feel like this tutorial went a little too fast for you, it didn't cover all the details, definitely go to my Editor's Guide to Style. And this is a guide that I created that covers how to make newsletters as well as other graphics, standards information. So definitely check that out at this link, and you can definitely refer to that for more information. Alright, so let's get started. So to create newsletters, you should first pick a catchy name for your newsletter. And so this should be fun and catchy. So for example, the Pacific Northwest District newsletter is called the Espresso. And it's called the Espresso because espresso, it reminds you of like coffee, and coffee comes in Seattle, and Seattle's in the Pacific Northwest. And so basically, it's just a very regional, punny thing. And also press is a reference to kind of the communications, publications part of it. So definitely just have something creative and witty maybe, and just fun for the title of your newsletter, because that can be a way to draw people into reading it without even having to open the newsletter. The next thing you should do is make an issue account. So issue.com is the website where all of your lieutenant governors and myself are publishing all of our newsletters, so then you can see them online, and all you have to do is share a link so people can just click on it and go to your newsletter. So this is the website where you should be uploading all your newsletters onto, and so definitely make an issue.com account. So when you're making your newsletter, make sure that you include a cover page, table of contents, and some other information that I have on this list right here. The two things that I really highly encourage you to include are the review of last month's events with pictures and upcoming events information. So a review of last month's events would be, the recaps and the articles and the blurbs about, everything that happened, as well as lots of pictures that you've been taking at your events and DCMs and everything like that. And you would compile all of that into a newsletter and just put them on a page so everyone can see and read about what happened. You should also be including upcoming volunteer events, which means everything that's going to happen in the next month or 2 months. And so this would include like DCMs and any volunteer events and meetings that you have with your club. So you would include the who, what, where, when, and why for all of that, and just effectively communicate that through your publication. And so basically just include all of this stuff and try to add your own things or maybe take away things that you feel like aren't necessary and just play around with it. All right, so another thing you need to pay attention to when you're making your newsletters is the layout. And a lot of people have questions, how can I do that? How can I make it look good? And so I just have some tips for you. And the first tip is to kind of pay attention to how your pictures are. So for example, at the top of this page, I have a picture of my president, and she is covering, half of an entire page. So make sure that you just play around with the pictures. For example, on the other side of the page, I have, pictures in this little pencil shape. And, just play around with the shapes that your pictures are in and how big they are, how small they are, and just play around with it. Overall, it's up to you how it looks. You should also pay attention to the spacing between objects, so spacing between your text boxes. For example, at the edge of this page, this text box comes a little too close to the edge of the page, and it makes it kind of look a little crowded and cramped. So make sure that there's enough space between all the elements on the edges of your pages and in between each other too, to make sure that thing looks too cramped or crowded. You should also pay attention to the text boxes. And the most important part of your newsletter is the legibility and the ability to read them, because without being able to read them, there's kind of no point to your newsletters. So make sure that your paragraphs are readable. So make sure that your backgrounds aren't too crazy or patterned or just too distracting. Also, if your background is a big picture of people or anything like that, try to blur it out. I know that in the Microsoft Office software, there's tools to blur out photos and stuff. So just play around with those and make sure that your words are readable. Also, just pay attention to, where you put all this stuff on the page. You don't want everything to be really crowded, and of course, you want everything to just look nice. I think that's just an awesome part of our jobs because we have so much leeway with how we play around with how our newsletters, our flyers, our PowerPoints look. And so definitely just have fun with it and be creative. Here are just some layout ideas for your newsletters, and this is actually directly from the Editor's Guide to Style, like I talked about earlier. Honestly, that's just a really fun part for me, just playing around with how things look. So have fun with it and just be creative. And these are just some templates and examples if you ever need help or if you're ever stuck. And so here's just an example of what I've done in the past. And so for my covers, I just have everything in the center and just build around it. And for this page with the table of contents and the members of the month, I kind of had the table of contents at the top and the members of the month at the bottom. And I played around with the colors especially and just had a lot of fun with the fonts. And when you're finished with making your newsletter and everything looks really great and fabulous to you and you feel like, wow, I put so much time into this and I'm finally done. Once you get to that point, you can save your newsletter as a PDF file. And a PDF file is the type of file that you will be using to upload to issue.com. So after you saved it as a PDF, you would upload to issue.com. So log into your issue account that you've made for your club and click on the upload button at the top, like I've circled in the red, and basically just follow the steps on there. And Issue has instructions for uploading, so after you follow those instructions, make sure you title and describe your newsletter with your club name, your division, and your month and year. So that way all of that information is included so people know exactly what club and who you guys are. And lastly, the most important step for your newsletter is to share it. A newsletter is not useful, it's not good for anything at all if nobody reads it. So make sure that you're sharing it as often as you can and as much as you can through social media, and you're talking about it at your club meetings, and you're sending out notifications for it through email. So make sure that you're contacting all your members, your school club advisors, and your Kiwanis advisors with all of this information. And like I said before, if you have any questions or if you feel like this tutorial wasn't thorough enough and you want more information can be found at the Editor's Guide to Style, which is at that link. So definitely go to that, and I highly recommend you just go to that anyway, just to check it out and to learn just more about making newsletters and your position as an editor. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about are the brand guide and graphic standards information. And basically, when you're making your newsletters and your flyers and publications and whatnot, you need to pay attention to the way it looks. So Key Club International has put together a little brand guide that covers all the fonts, shapes, colors, graphics that you should be using in those publications. So basically, it just helps to keep all of the Key Club publications recognizable. So when you see Century Gothic and the pencil, you automatically think Key Club. So it keeps everything neat and adhering to the brand, so definitely pay attention to that and use the brand guide when you can. The first thing I want to cover are the fonts. So Key Club International focuses on 2 fonts for your headings. So you use either Century Gothic or Myriad Pro. And those are considered heading fonts. So they should be used for titles of your letters, newsletters, publications, pages, etc. So in this PowerPoint, I've used Century Gothic as the font on top of that pencil on the top. And basically, you should be using those as your heading fonts. For your paragraphs and for all of the blocks of text that you may have in your letters and PowerPoints and stuff, you should be using Gaudi Old Style or Myriad Pro, and those are the fonts that should be kept legible, and definitely use them at around 12-point font like you would in an essay, and just format it like you would in an essay. So don't center it and don't do anything weird to it. Make sure that the line spacing is appropriate and they're readable. The next thing we should cover are colors. So colors are very important and they can make or break a design. And for my newsletters, I generally follow this rule. And I would pick a dark color, 1 to 2 main colors, and an accent color that complements my main colors. So basically, I follow that rule, and I also use the Key Club brand guide colors. And so those are located over there, and basically they encompass most of the colors in the rainbow, and you can just lighten them and darken them too, so depending on what you prefer, and you can use them whenever you can and just as often as you can when you're making your publications. However, you want to be careful and you want to gauge the situation. So if you're, for example, making a flyer that is more serious, you don't want to use too many colors because it can often, distract the reader. And if you're trying to get someone's attention, you should maybe use more color because it can often be more exciting and just enthusiastic to read. So oftentimes just gauge the situation and use it depending on however you see. So for example, in this PowerPoint, I wanted the focus to be the content and not any of my graphics and colors. So I used just 2-3 main colors. So I used Pantone Blue, which is what I have, and I've used Cyan a few times, and I'm using just white. So basically those just keep my PowerPoint clean and easy to read, and I really focus on the text and the content. But overall, my main tip is to not use too many colors ever. I would never use beyond, 5 colors, 4 colors, and I think that would be the max because you don't want your layouts to be really rainbow and really difficult to read. You don't want to overwhelm or blind your readers. So overall, just gauge the situation and be tasteful with your colors. The next thing I want to talk about are the logos, and the logos are crucial to the identity of Key Club, and if I were to choose the most important part of the brand guide, I would choose the logos. So definitely take them very seriously and present them very professionally. You don't want to ever destroy proportions or crowd it with other things. You want to make sure it's clean and neat wherever you use them. So there's 2 kinds of Key Club logos. There's the seal that I have on the very left, and then there's also just the words that say Key Club in Century Gothic font. And so definitely never do anything like this. Don't stretch it or warp it. Don't cover it with itself, and don't, do weird things with it, basically. You want to make it look presentable and readable. And definitely, as an editor, this kind of graphic makes you very uncomfortable, and as an editor, you should feel very, very disgusted by this too. Don't ever mess with the logo like this. And even as an editor, you should be very attuned to the little details. So on the left, you can see that the logo is very round in its aspect ratio, but on the right, you can see that it's even squished a little bit. And even that little bit of squishing really ruins how the logo is supposed to be presented. So be very careful with that and just make sure that the logo is presented in its correct format at all times. Be very careful with that. The next part of the Key Club identity is the pencil, and it's basically as important to me as the logo, and I definitely use this a lot. And there's 2 kinds of pencils. There's a solid pencil and the scribble pencil, and you can use this as heading backgrounds like I have on this PowerPoint. You can use them as borders for your pages, etc. So just be creative with how you use them, but again, don't be weird, don't stretch them, and don't make the tip very tiny, and don't make it too long. Just be very careful with how it looks. So here are just some examples of how I've used the pencil in the past. So I've used it, as the background for titles, and I've rotated it and used the tip as, backgrounds for headings and stuff. So like in this layout right here. And I've also used them to, strike across a whole page so you can put words on top of them as titles. And basically the pencil gives a very dynamic feel to your pages or anything that you use them in, and it's a really good way to highlight things on a page. So definitely use the pencil when you can, because it's just a really neat and useful graphic tool. The next thing I want to talk about are the doodles. And Key Club International offers lots of doodles on their website, and they act kind of as clip art. But you should always use clip art and these doodles sparingly, because the main focus of any PowerPoint or any newsletters or anything are the photos inside and the content. And so you really want to draw focus to the photos of your Key Clubbers volunteering and doing things. You don't want the focus to be the clip art. So use them sparingly and don't have too many per page, and just be tasteful with it. You don't want to overwhelm your readers with them. Key Club International also has Walk Around the Block as a decorative font, and it kind of acts as a clip art font to me, because it's not readable and there's not much use for it, because you can't really use this font for paragraphs. It's very difficult to read at a small size. So I would use this for titles and just as a decorative font, just around your newsletter or publications whenever. Lastly, there's some other graphics on the Key Club International website, like the ones here, and the grid background on the back of this PowerPoint. As you can see, these can also be found on the Key Club website. And definitely either Google search Key Club brand guide and click on the first link, or go to the Key Club website and under the resources you can find the brand guide. And look for it and just be aware of where it is, and the link is also right here. And use it as often as you can, and just explore the page, because definitely there are a lot of useful things on there that you should be using when you're putting together anything that you're using for your Key Club. So now we're just going to talk about some other duties that you have as an editor, and these are just in addition to the duties that I've already mentioned before. And so you're responsible for making your club's scrapbook. And every year at DCON, there's a scrapbook contest for two kinds of scrapbooks. There's a traditional scrapbook, which is just your typical bounded, flip through scrapbook with all your, decorations and pictures and captions. And there's also a non-traditional scrapbook, which is basically anything else, as long as it includes your photos and your captions and whatnot. So last year, as my club's editor, I put together a non-traditional scrapbook with my club, and the theme for DCON was level up in service. So I decided it would be cool to have kind of like a game cube. And basically it was just a cube, a box, that I've decorated with photos and everything. And you have to include all of this information from service to the community to fundraising, etc. So make sure that you are documenting that throughout the year, taking pictures, and just being aware of that and including those kinds of things in your scrapbook. You should also try to make it a club effort, so definitely work with members in your club to, glue pictures on and, put this scrapbook together, because it's definitely a great bonding activity too. At the district level, you can definitely contribute to everything that I do as district editor. So as district editor, I create the espresso, like I mentioned before, and I release this 4 times a year, and basically I want to include more pictures of clubs serving their community. So definitely do me a favor and send photos to this tiny URL link. And this is a link to a Google Drive that I've created. And basically just open it with your Google account and, make a folder with your name and division as the title, and just upload your photos into it, because I will definitely look through all those photos and add them to the espresso. And it'll be really cool if your club's featured in that newsletter. You should also be joining the PNW Editors Facebook group. So all you have to do is go on Facebook and search PNW Editors, and it should be the first group, and join it. And it's open, and I will be releasing video updates on it. And it's a great way to really communicate with the other editors in our district. So definitely share ideas. If you ever need help, you can ask people on there. And it'll just be a fun, online community where we can all talk about our duties. Next, I want you to follow the PNW Key Club issue account. And the issue account for the PNW Key Club district is at PNWKC. And all of our district publications will be released on theirs, including the Espresso. And the Espresso, like I've said, is going to be released 4 times a year, 1 for each season. So definitely follow that account on issue, and it'll just be a great system for you to get information from me directly. Lastly, if you ever have any questions, feel free to Facebook message me, email, call me, or text me. And my contact information is right there, so make sure you save it onto your phone and add me on Facebook. And I'm always available to help you, because that is one of my jobs. Overall, I'd like to say thank you for watching this video, and I hope that it was really helpful, and I hope that you have a better understanding of, how your job works. If you ever have any questions, like I said, contact me. And overall, thank you for watching, and I hope that you have a great day and a great term as an editor.